Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Gay in the Life. I'm Garrett.
And I'm Blake.
And this week's guest is Tan France.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We've been going through your book over the last week.
Yes. Before we get into serious topics, I just want to start with, I was so excited to hear about another boy who played with Barbies.
I love my Barbie.
For those of you who don't know or haven't read the book yet, he mentions how his dad bought him an elaborate Barbie Dreamhouse with all the Barbies you could ever want. And the little me was so jealous because I had one Barbie and one G.I. Joe, and my dad was so mad. And my grandma she goes, well, he just seems well balanced to me.
Smart grandma.
I know, right?
Very progressive.
Are you in Utah right now?
I'm in Utah. So we have a place in Utah, a place in LA. This one is the one that we come to when we're trying to escape a pandemic. I am very much a city boy. However, I love those mountains so much. I'm so much more outdoorsy than I think people assume. I think that they assume I'm a prissy little queen, and I am. But I also really like the mountains.
Oh, you're not alone. I was chopping a tree down in our backyard just like a week and a half ago.
Okay, story topper. That's more.
No, you live in Utah. That's totally.
I literally walk. You're chopping shit down.
It was pretty hot, I gotta say. It was a nice.
Of course.
I also wanted to ask you too, when you're introduced in things, they say, Tan, the gay British Muslim, and you don't like talking about that. So we want to talk exactly about that. Not really.
Well, no. It's not.
No, we don't.
Like talking about it. It's when Anthony, Jonathan, or Bobby are referenced in the press. We can all be in the same article. It could be an article about us five.
Right.
You will hear, or you will read, Bobby Burke from Illinois, design guy. Anthony from Canada, food and wine guy. And then without a doubt, Tan France, immigrant, Pakistani, Muslim, raised by Pakistani parents, blah, 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 blah. And then what I do for a living. It's always a backstory. I'm like, no, I don't need a backstory.
Right.
I'm fine just the way I am. I am very proud of who I am and where I come from, but I don't need that to be the thing that the press focus on, either to pat themselves on the back that they would allow somebody like me to be talked about in the press, or for them to single me out and say, he's a concern, he's a Muslim. No, that's not a concern for me.
You really did look for that representation in media with all the social movements going on that are really important. We're starting to see a push for a lot more of that. And I think it's important to understand why that is important to people who are in different minority groups.
You're right. I was searching for representation or to feel less alone as a kid. And Queer as Folk was one of the first shows that I saw that I thought, okay, there are gay people out there. I can live that life and possibly be happy. However, seeing Caucasian gay culture wasn't enough because we are so different. There are very, 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 very many intersectional people within the gay community. The white gay story is not the only story.
Right.
And therefore, yes, it was lovely to see this super hot gay kid on the show Queer as Folk, and everybody wanted to sleep with him.
Yeah.
Get it. Totally get it. Very different story for somebody who's Pakistani in England. We are definitely treated like second-class citizens. Nobody is willing to, they will date you, but they definitely won't take you home to their parents. That would be shockingly inappropriate.
Wow.
Maybe they would fetishize us. Maybe they would think, yeah, he's going to be smart, because they call, in America, we call the model minority, where they usually really care about education. They're usually quite successful when it comes to business. So maybe there are reasons to date, but you really aren't treating that person as a real person. They're fulfilling some kind of need you might have in a very different way, not just we love that person. And so there wasn't any of that on TV. I felt less alone thinking, yeah, there are men who love other men, but where are our stories? Does nobody care about any other story other than the white or some very few black stories? And so that's where the problem lies. When I was a kid, as much as I knew I was gay, I didn't know I would live past my 20s. By the time we get to our 20s, in my culture, you are married. If you're not married by 25, maybe 30 at the very latest, you are left on the shelf, and you're just the person who just wasn't able to find a good match, but they're a great uncle or a great aunt.
Wow.
There's no way I could have said, hey, or imagined as a kid that I could say, hey, I'm not going to get married and live comfortably and happily, and my parents accept me or my family accept me. So there wasn't a view for the future. It was only when I moved away, I stopped engrossing myself within my own community. I moved to America. I met somebody who loved me exactly who I was. And then I thought, I'm going to have to find a way to be that person for the people around me in my own community. I wasn't expecting fame. I hadn't tried for show business, but just within my own community to say, I'm married to somebody, he loves me very much. Anyone in my own community who might think that this isn't possible, it is. And I just so happened to get lucky where I then was cast on a show where hopefully I can show kids who are in South Asia, the Middle East, there are other options available for us. We don't have to give up at 20-something, either run away or die.
One of the first things you mentioned in your book that really touched my heart was that you said that you have always felt comfortable with the queer part of your human.
Yeah.
And that it was never an aha moment.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much strength in that, and so powerful for so many young people who feel like it, because of the way society has been for so long, in that you of course have to discover it. It's like sometimes maybe the person just knows, and that's okay.
It's a weird one. When I first got the show, people would ask me in particular, when did you know you were gay? Even if it's from a queer person. And I always, the thing I always want to say to people is, do you think straight folks think, oh God, I don't know. Do I want to marry a woman or do I want to marry a man? If you're cis and straight. No, right. You just decide that you're going to marry the opposite. You just know that you're going to marry the opposite sex, or you're going to date the opposite sex. It's a thing that is a thing. And that's how I was. But the reason why people ask me is because I was in a strict family. I was raised within a strict culture where you don't ordinarily expect that somebody would be so blasé about it, because it's not something we see in our communities, and that is a fair argument. When it's a person who's a part of the Caucasian community, it's a little more understandable that they might think, well, that's attainable for me because I've seen it. It's there. It's in the press. It's in the media. I've seen it in movies. There's people in my neighborhood who are gay, or there are people in my neighborhood who are gay, and that's attainable for me. When you are a person who's in a community where there is zero representation, I never met one person who was gay and brown. I never met a Muslim who said that they were gay. That was never on my TV, never in a book I'd ever read. Right. And so at that point, to still feel like, yeah, of course this is gonna be my life. I will. It's not that for me, I would love to take that credit and say it was very strong. I refuse to accept that there was any other alternative.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I feel like so many people struggle with trying to not only understand what their own sexuality is, but after they understand it, trying to kind of piecemeal, slowly test the waters to see how other people are going to take it as well.
That I did do. So I never questioned whether I was gay or not. That was just a fact.
Right.
It was how I was going to navigate those waters, how I was going to tell people who had never heard that word before.
Right.
Truly, my family had never heard that word before. They had never had a conversation with somebody that had said, hey, there's a world where two men might love each other. That concept was it was as if an alien had landed on this planet and said, this is who I am, and let me tell you my story. So that conversation is very, very weird and difficult to imagine. But being gay was never difficult.
Did you find comfort in that when discussing it with people within your community?
To a certain extent, yes. I made some choices that definitely showed that I wasn't as strong as I may come across now. Right. And it's stuff that I don't really ordinarily talk about publicly because nobody cares to ask. But I did leave my hometown because it was small and I knew people wouldn't understand. Manchester, which is where Queer as Folk was set in the UK, because I knew I'd seen on this show that there was a huge gay community there. There was something called a gay village where there were like literally 50 bars on one street. Everyone was gay. It lined this neighborhood. And it's one of the biggest gay populations in Europe. And so I chose to leave my hometown and go somewhere where I might be more accepted. I used to think that was a weak move, and I thought, oh, you ran away from your problems. No, for me, that was a version of strength. It was giving up everything I'd ever known to find a place where I might not be persecuted. I think I would have had a much harder time if I had tried to stay in my hometown.
Well, you are not alone in that. I remember being othered growing up, having people vandalize my house, or I was telling him last night, we were talking about, a lot of people think we're so far past these things, but while we have a large community of support, we also have an equal amount of hate in the world, and it's our job to use that love to combat the hate, to change these minds.
And to share these stories of people who are deluded enough to think that these things don't happen,
Mm-hmm.
can start to understand, no. The person that I like on TV, the person that I support on Broadway, the person that I see in movies, they saw some real ish that I didn't think was possible. And I'm not going to believe that person down the street because I don't know them. But I feel like I know Tan, and I don't think he would lie about that. And I think those stories are important to share.